So in this video, we're going to start to extend our analysis by looking at the relationship between different variables in the data set. And this is really what survey analysis is about. It's trying to find relationships, say, between characteristics of individuals and particular behaviours. And in this particular example, we're going to be looking at the characteristics of students who live with their parents and see whether they are different from students not living at home. So I'm just going to be showing you how we do simple cross tabulations between two variables. It is possible to look at more complex multiple relationships between more than two variables, and that is done by statistical modelling techniques. I'm not going to be showing you for this level 5 course how you do statistical modelling, but if any of you are interested, for example, it might be of relevance for you for your dissertations, then please do get in contact with me and I can show you how to do it. Actually, running the modelling is very simple. What people find difficult is the interpretation. That's true for all statistical techniques, but it's particularly true for modelling. So for this level 5 course, we're just going to stay with cross-tabulation. So to do a cross-tabulation, we go back to Analyse, choose that drop-down menu, go to Descriptive Statistics and choose Crosstabs. This opens up a dialog window. I've already been running a few, so I'm just going to get rid of those choices. When you do your crosstab for the first time, it's going to open up this dialog box. As I've already said, I want to be looking at the characteristics of students living in the parental home to see whether they are different. So I'm going to go back to my variable, live with parents, and I'm going to choose to put that into the rows of my cross-tabulation. So I'm going to click on that top arrow there and it goes into the rows. And I'm going to start with a simple cross-tabulation, looking at the relationship, whether there's any relationship with gender, whether whether we have more male females or male students or female students living in the parental home. So I'm going to put gender into my columns. In the crosstab dialog box, you can see again there are a number of different options, and this time we are going to choose some of those options. So first I'm going to go into cells. The particular part of the cells that I'm really interested in is the percentages. If we just run a straightforward crosstab, we just get the raw data. We just get the cell counts. This little part of the dialog box tells you about the counts, and the fact that observe ticks, that means we're going to get the data that's actually in the data set, and that's what we're interested in. We're not interested in any changes, so we can ignore everything else. But as well as the actual counts, it's useful to have a look at the percentages. So I'm going to choose to put the row and the column percentages in, because that's going to do some calculations, some very useful calculations for me. We can also put the total in, but it makes the table look a little bit difficult to understand. So I'm just going to go for row and column. So I'm going to click on continue. I also want to run a statistical test. When we look at relationships between variables or associations between variables, it's very important that we understand whether any difference is statistically significant. In order to do this for a simple cross-tabulation, the statistic that we want to use is the simple chi-square. I hope chi-square might be familiar. I do understand that you're taught about chi-square at in level 4, but I will be explaining what the chi-square test means when we look at the analysis results. So I'm going to choose chi-squared. There are, as you can see, lots of other statistical tests that you can use, but we're just going to stay with the straightforward chi-squared. So after I've chosen chi-squared, I'm going to click on continue. So I'm now ready to run my cross-tabulation. So I click on OK, and it runs my cross-tabulation. So now I'm at the output window. So at the top here, I have my case processing summary, which tells me the cases that have actually gone into the cross-tabulation. So again, you've got the valid and you've also got the missing. So we know that, of the valid, there are 3,655. We know, if you remember from the previous video, there are some missing cases in gender. There's 35 missing cases in gender. And so the valid does not include those. So that's the actual number that has gone into the cross tabulation. The missing cases have not been included. And this is the actual cross tab. You can see we've got live with parents, so we've got not living with parents at the top, living with parents at the bottom, and then we've got male and female. And we've actually got the cell counts, then we've got the row percentages, and then the column percentages. Can take a little while to work out what all of these actually mean, so I will go through and I will explain it for you. So if we look at the top left-hand corner, this is the cross tabulation between male and not living with parents. We can see that we've got 956 students, and that accounts male students. This first percentage here, that's looking at the percentage with living with parents. That shows us that 33.5% of students who are not living with parents, because we're in the no section here, are male, while 66.5% of students who are not living with parents are female. If we look at the next percentage row here, this is the percentage within gender. We can see that of male students, 75.9% are not living with parents. In contrast, if we look at female students, we can see that 79.1% are not living with their parents. And at the bottom of the table here, we have we have gender for those students who are living with their parents. So again here, this is the row percentage. We can see that 37.8% of students living with their parents are male, and 62.2% of these students are female. And here we have the column percentage. We can see that of the male students in our survey, 24.1% of those students are living with their parents, and of the female students in the survey, 20.9% are living with their parents. So if we just look at these statistics here, that's the within gender, it does seem to be that there's a difference. 75.9% of male students aren't living with their parents, while 24.1% are. In contrast, there seems to be more female students, 79.1%, who are living away from home, and 20.9% of students who are living with their parents. So overall, this suggests that there probably is a relationship between gender and whether you're living with your parents or not. And this is what the chi-squared test does for us. So you don't have to calculate the chi-squared test. SPSS does it for you. All you need to learn how to do is how do you interpret your chi-squared test. Now we're just going to look at the top line here. This is the basic chi-squared test, also known as the Pearson's chi-squared. And as you can see, there are other statistical measures that are calculated, but we're not going to worry about those. We're just going to look at the Pearson chi-squared. Now there are limits to Pearson chi-squared. It doesn't work if you have very small cell counts. If any of these cell counts are very small, it's not going to be able to run the chi-squared. But as you can see, we have large cell counts in our table, so that's not an issue here. The DF stands for the degrees of freedom, and that's what we need to know when it's the degrees of freedom needs to be taken into account when we're looking at whether the chi-squared value that has been calculated is significant. But as SPSS does this for you, you don't have to worry about the degrees of freedom. It's just SPSS is basically giving you all of the information that you actually need. The important number in this particular data set, in this particular output, is this number here, this 0.24. So this is the significance, and it's two-sided significance because we're interested in whether we're not saying that the relationship goes one particular way, and that's what, and a chi-squared is always looking at a two-sided significance. So when you look at the chi-square, all you need to be doing is looking at this number here. And the important thing to remember about chi-squared, how does it tell us if this relationship is statistically significant? If this number here, and this number is 0.024, if it is less than 0.1, that our interpretation is that we have a 90% significance, or we can be 90% certain that this relationship has not occurred by chance. We can even look at a 95% significance level. If this number here is less than 0.05, we can say that we can be 95% certain that this relationship between gender and living at home has not occurred by chance. Just to give you another way of interpreting that, if we go to the 90% significant, that's basically telling us that if we did this survey 10 times with 10 different sample populations, 9 times out of 10, we would find the same relationship between gender and living at home. 9 times out of 10, we would find more male students are living at home compared to female students. The 95% significance, it's a little bit harder to turn that using a similar analogy. It means that if we carried out the sample 100 times, 95 times we would expect to see the same relationship between gender and living at home. So this figure here is 0.024. That's less than 0.05 and less than 1. So we can therefore state that the relationship that we find in our cross-tabulation, that is that male students are more likely to be living in the parental home than female students, is 95% significant. It's significant at a 95% level. Okay, because that significance reading for our Pearson chi-squared is less than 0.05.